Hello and welcome back to the Let's Backflip show. I'm the worst elf ever. This is Rick Astley, and over here we've got Heisenberg. Does he growl? Is that
I don't know. Is that a thing he did? I kind of remember.
We're recording this on Halloween, and these guys came in some excellent costumes today.
Completely.
To be clear, this is a costume that John's in. He doesn't own this.
Also, to be clear, this is my costume as well, though I owned 90% of this outfit already.
We talked about this earlier. They're amazing costumes, but you guys are both like, I pretty much just have stuff, and I pick characters that look like me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So next year I'll be Uncle Fester, and the year after that I will just be a random editor.
Gosh, that would be amazing.
Just gotta
Uncle Fester,
already shave my
everything,
head.
like bick it.
Yeah.
Did you bick it?
I bicked it this year. No, I bicked it this year. I bicked it about 4 or 5 days prior to Halloween, so now unfortunately it's already grown back because I bicked it for a party. Multiple parties that I was attending. Yeah. Because I'm popular.
Multiple parties that I was attending. I did not have a costume today, so I wore some costume from a commercial that we did with the worst elf ever. Yeah. So it's... You can't really tell. It just looks like a green shirt and hat.
I have several costumes.
Here?
At his disposal at any given time.
So you're going to change throughout the day?
I don't know. I've been...
If we had more prep time, he would have changed between shots.
Well, I wasn't wearing this in the other
That's true.
episode.
In the other two.
That's true.
So he, let's see, what was I going to say? This is 11/22, so it's like Thanksgiving is when this is happening.
Oh, wow.
So you're welcome. Did you guys see that Bears game with the dude whose leg like bent the wrong way?
I did not.
I saw it and didn't really pay attention because like when you watch things, you just notice the good things.
Yeah.
You know, you ignore the bad things. Like as a kid, you didn't know in Goonies that they're talking about like porn and cursing and things like that. Never knew that as a kid. Then my sister tried to play it for her middle school class, and as soon as you got to that, I was like, oh, didn't realize that was in this PG movie. Turn it off. PG's like R now.
And most people didn't realize there was a giant scene with an octopus.
Yeah. What?
Yes. Look it up.
In Goonies?
On Goonies.
Is it what?
It's on the TV version of the film. There's a scene where they're crossing the lake, going to the ship, and they are attacked by a giant octopus.
I don't recall that.
Exactly. Huh. It exists. There's footage. It's on the YouTube.
Speaking of which,
did that change the industry forever?
You know what? That scene didn't, but I know 6 other things that did in fact change. I'm looking at all 3 cameras, though I'm on one.
Which gets us to today's topic.
Indeed.
6 movies and TV shows that change creative marketing forever. Actually, the entertainment industry forever.
Flawless segues by Jeff. So really what it is there's like 3 TV shows and 3 movies that I picked out because these movies and TV shows, they did something different that up to that point was not the norm. They kind of broke away from the norm, and ultimately what they did became the norm for
what's the time period we're talking about? Are we talking about the last 100 years, or what are we talking about?
We're going from like the late 30s until about the late 70s, early 80s. So there's about a 40-50 year gap there.
And then between the 70s and now,
nothing happened really. Nothing. It was just kind of like meh. We're just kind of rehashing ourselves.
Actually, that should be part 2.
Yeah, part 2 would be what happened
70s to now
in the last 30,
like, did you check out that film that took place 100 years ago? It's called A Train Goes By.
Yeah. You know the movie where people fled the theater because they thought the train was going to crash through?
It was riveting.
Did they really?
Yes.
Were people dumb?
People were dumb in the early 1900s.
I mean, I guess people freak out with VR, right?
True.
They're like you were freaking out. You didn't even have the glasses on. This is Madalena I'm pointing at. You didn't even have the glasses on, had it in the wrong stereo, like it was not stereoscopic. It was just all awkwardly on your phone, and it still scared you, which is a good piece of content.
Oh, yes.
But imagine had you actually looked at that, you know, you're looking around, which you eventually did.
Scared me at the end.
That's true. I did scream, and yeah, you almost chucked your phone in the thing. But I guess that kind of makes sense. You know, if you've never seen anything like that before,
right.
You've only seen Life.
Right.
So a train coming at you is a bad thing.
Is a bad thing. You were taught at a very young age, do not stand in the way of a train.
Yeah, if they're coming at you, maybe get out of the way.
Yeah, and most people did.
Yeah, if they didn't, they only lived till 30. That's why that age was, you know, the average death age was so low.
Once film started, people were learning how to survive longer.
Yes, get out of the way of trains.
Get out of the way of trains. Now, that was not one of the 6, unfortunately. No, it was not one of the 6.
What is that, the Great Train Escape, or what was that?
It was a Great Train Robbery where they did the VFX, like the first real compositing.
That's
because
right.
it was all shot at a soundstage and they composited it in
I am
the
glad
train.
we don't have to do that crap.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm
Compositing
so
with film.
glad.
Oh my
with
gosh.
film? Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm so glad we don't have to do it with film.
Yeah, no. You just sit there and do it with buttons.
Like click, click, click.
As
and look
opposed
at
to
that.
like the Star Wars, like we're gonna film this in 30 different takes, a few different takes, but then composite 30 different pieces of film.
Right.
Some are negative, some are like double negative, some are triple negative. I'm making all this up.
Just to block out the different aspects of different locations, so that way they can put back in other pieces of models or the explosions or the pyrotechnics.
It's amazing.
Which,
so I
by the
hope
way,
Star Wars is one of yours.
Star Wars was number 6. So we'll just go ahead. We'll start with 6 and we'll work our way backwards. We'll go back in time. It's like a time movie machine.
Yes.
All right.
Worst thing ever.
Flying
backwards. So number 6 was Star Wars: A New Hope, and I feel like this is a very common knowledge for this one. Obviously, everyone's well aware that when A New Hope came out, it kind of revolutionized special effects. Not saying there weren't, special effects heavy movies prior to that. 2001: A Space Odyssey is a gorgeous looking movie, and they shot that with models. But what they did for Star Wars was they reimagined, they approached special effects differently with what they did. They started using more blue screen and green screen. It wasn't just all shot.
I'm pretty sure they
camera.
Pioneered the blue screen too. I forget the engineer, but they pioneered that technique.
And like using rotoscoping and using the combination of practical effects and models and miniatures and rear projections, especially like once Empire came around, using a model and actually putting a little screen inside the model that was playing a video clip that they had filmed prior, like stuff like that.
I had no idea.
Was all just, it was kind of revolutionary. And from there, obviously, Star Wars was what created Industrial Light and Magic, which is known as ILM, for those who don't know the full name and maybe only know ILM.
Yeah, jerks.
Jerk face.
What are you thinking?
I love every one of you.
Learn it.
But like that was the...
Is that Heisenberg as a robot? I love everyone.
I love every one of you.
Murder, kill, death.
And crack.
Murder, death, kill.
Meth. So crack. I keep doing that.
Blue crack.
So that was kind of the big thing for Star Wars. And after that, you see all of this change in the way visual effects were done. And just in the last 30 years, it continues to go up unless you have a small budget, and then it keeps going down.
Well, and I want to jump in there too. Yeah. One really cool thing that they did was they used multiple different techniques and not just all blue screen or just all miniatures or all practicals. And I think that combination makes something very special, because now when a movie leans too heavily on what's green screen, what used to be blue screen is green screen now. When they lean too heavily on that, it has a different feeling. It doesn't have the weight in my mind of something, and it's just because our graphics aren't there yet. Something like a real set or a real miniature has a different weight to it when I watch it, and so that's what I liked about the original Star Wars, is that it combined all those things to create effect. Whereas when Lucas went back, and it's totally his prerogative, he owns the property, even though we own the creative maybe, or the story as
in
fans, in our hearts. It went back and added CG effects into things. It just totally ruined the experience. It brought me out. Growing up, I was like, this is real, and then seeing it again, I still thought that, and then I saw the new versions, and I'm like, all right.
There's a commentary there about not going back to your old stuff.
Don't re-edit.
I'm always against that. I'm like, no, don't go back to it. We did that. We're on to the next thing.
I've unfortunately been... I've gone back.
Are you re-editing upstairs?
Not upstairs. I've not upgraded. No, upstairs is done. I'm wiping my hands of that one. And
it's you kill your babies. Like, you have good shots or good edits, and eventually you got to trim it down and just get rid of really great stuff you love. Likewise, I've heard, I forget who it was, say, you never finish a film, you just abandon it. Right. Yeah. At some point you're just like, I'm done.
It's like, well, that's as much as I'm doing on this one.
You can keep working on it forever, but then you end up with Jabba the Huts walking around in the background on the opening scene in Tatooine or wherever that was. I forget the city and planet. So that's, for good or for worse, it changed the industry. And now some of the new Star Wars movies have gone back a little bit to more practical, which is fantastic.
And using animatronics and using models and using it in a more hybrid way. Using the models with the CG just to make it a little bit nicer in spots and kind of fix up some of the stuff that they can't do practically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
I also realized while we were talking that my time frame estimate was wrong. It actually goes until the mid to late 90s for this talk, because number 5 is The Sopranos. For a television show, because what The Sopranos did was The Sopranos introduced the concept that television, even though it was HBO, it was still television, could have film quality stories and programming.
Yeah.
Because it introduced this idea that they can have these hard-hitting dramas with very intricate storylines and very deep, like well acted on television.
Yeah, complex emotions and characters and stories. Right?
Because TV for the longest time was always considered to be from actors where film actors went, quote unquote, to die.
Yeah.
Because it's like once you started acting on TV, that's it, you were out.
Are you saying 2.5 Men isn't quality?
I mean, there's a couple episodes,
I
but
hate that show so much. I almost threw up saying it.
Well, I mean, look at Charlie Sheen, and that's a good point. That is where
so
he
it's
went
not
to
on
die.
the. It's
Let's
not
get
on the
back
list.
to The Sopranos.
Well, I mean, and there was even a stigma that if you went to TV, you would die, or if you started in TV, it was very hard to get to film. Film was the golden goose, and so now it seems like that is not the case at all. I mean, look at Frodo, Martin Freeman.
Oh, Martin Freeman.
The other. I mean, Elijah Wood.
Sorry.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Right. So one's Frodo, and are they both Frodos?
No, sorry, Bilbo. Bilbo is
Bilbo's Martin Freeman.
Yep.
And Elijah Wood is another good example of people who can do really great, amazing movies and jump into TV as well.
Right.
I think Martin Freeman actually started on The Office.
Yep.
In
British
television. One. Yep. But then got into film and got The Hobbit, and now he's just amazing.
They actually flipped because Elijah Wood started in movies and went to TV, and Martin Freeman started in television and went to movies and did it seamlessly.
Samwise just showed up.
Samwise is
he's in everything.
Sean Astin is literally just in everything.
And he's now in more TV, but I would even say that Martin Freeman and Elijah Wood, they're both doing both right now. Mm-hmm. So Martin Freeman, I can't think of his latest movie, but he's in
Sherlock.
I'll say he's in Sherlock, and he keeps appearing in like.
But
Marvel
he's in
now.
Startup, I think, which is on Crackle or something weird. Like,
wow.
He's on that, right? Elijah Wood is in Dirk Gently, which is an amazing show. But now there's the stigma's gone, and I feel like Sopranos is where it all started, where it's like, ooh, that can be real art.
Yep. And I mean, obviously, the success of The Sopranos have led to stuff like Breaking Bad, has led to you could do like basically anything AMC produces now.
Yeah.
But then it also led the way to stuff like what Netflix is doing and Amazon's doing. Like you can have shows, real serious shows with the budget, or not the budget, the production quality of a big budget film. You're getting 4 or 5 seasons of this instead of a 2-hour movie. And some people may argue that's bad, but you can't argue with how good Breaking Bad is. Or Sopranos.
I'll kill you.
I'll kill you.
That's what he says. I'm pretty sure.
Every season, that's his tagline. That's his catchphrase.
like Gus, you're going to come behind somebody with a box cutter and
just gets it, and you're done.
Well, and I wonder too if it kind of opened up people to more. What is it? More crazy stories, like more cursing, more action, more violence, more, all those things, because a cable network can do those types of things. And TV was always a little bit more feel-good, oriented. And then, you start with Sopranos and The Wire and all those around there, which are super gritty and take us to a place that I was saying in last episode, why I love media and movies, take me to a place I never would experience in my real life, but I can experience these emotions kind of through that story. And I think that was a cool thing the Sopranos did, and those cable dramas were able to do, was to open up the possibility for just more explicit storytelling,
right?
In a good way,
and not have to be constrained to a 90-minute or 2-hour time block where I have to get through everything. I have to get through the plot. The arc has to be done and over with. You can now stretch it over the course of 2-3 seasons and fully develop this story arc. And not be restricted. It's not limited, and that opened up a whole new world. Not the Aladdin movie, also not the segue, also not a Spielberg movie, which brings me to my next one.
Number 4.
Great segue is Jaws. The movie Jaws was the first time. Now it's not what you might think, but it's prior to the movie coming out. Studios did not advertise on television. But that's my segue. Television. See, look at that. TV.
I like it.
They did not advertise on television for a film. You rarely saw trailers for movies on television prior to Jaws coming out. But for Jaws, Universal sank $700,000 in 30 seconds
at that time
in the 70s.
Wow.
in 30-second advertisement spots in prime time.
That's like $1 trillion.
It's a lot.
With inflation.
I'm sure out there do the math, or I'm sure future Madalena, while editing this, will do the inflation. Madalena's felt like a slate.
700,000 in the 70s. What would that be today? I mean, that's dozens of millions.
It's dozens of millions. It's probably something, if it's from 1975 until now, it's probably like 2.5 million or something, or 3 million.
Oh, only that much?
Well, with inflation, can you...
If only there was a way, like a tool.
There's a website called Inflation Calculator.
Is there?
70s?
75.
She's figuring it out.
I used to use the Inflation Calculator website all the time for the
I have a
podcast.
computer right here.
7,000 too.
700,000.
Oh gosh.
You can hear us, right?
Only when she's paying attention.
She's got headphones on.
Apparently, it's riveting.
Let's see. This is the best part of the podcast. What's going on?
It's equal to 3.256.
Whoa, check you out.
Not too bad.
You're way better at it.
I did a podcast for 2.5 years where I always had to figure out what inflation was for the amount of money from the era, and apparently I maintained some of that knowledge in my head.
350% inflation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but think about it. I mean, and yes, nowadays movie budgets tend to be, for promotion, tend to be, could be
the same
10,
price of the movie.
15, 20, up to 100 million, depending upon the size of the film itself. Right. Between, commercials and trailers and social media and banners and promo, they spent $3.5 million.
That had to be more expensive than the movie.
It was pretty dang close to the cost of the movie.
What was the cost,
I do not know the cost of it off the top of my head. That's the one thing I don't know. But this was the first time it did it.
One thing
I do know. I do know, though, because of them doing it, that's one of the many reasons why Jaws became so successful, was because now they're reaching the home audience. Because before then, the only time you'd have seen or known about that film was if you had gone to the theater and seen possibly a trailer before another film, or had seen the poster coming up. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known about it unless, or maybe you read an article in the paper.
Right.
So this was the 3 days leading up to its premiere. They were pumping out these commercials, and now obviously you see trailers everywhere. Trailers are just a thing now.
Yeah.
On any social media, any television, it doesn't matter. You'll see a commercial for it, and but Jaws was kind of the first time that a studio had fully embraced doing it, and it led to be profitable and proved to be fruitful for the film. So that kind of changed after that. Once people started realizing it, that hey, look, this doing this technique will actually help get more people in the seats. Well, that's what we have to do from now on.
Yeah.
And other studios started picking up on it, and then you have the trailer commercials that aired on TV all the time. Kind of interesting, kind of different way, kind of changing,
Well, and it was because of that the biggest, I'm just reading that now, highest grossing film of all time until the release of Star Wars in 77. So like you're saying, just set up that new medium of how we market things. And, so their budget was about $9 million, it looks like, at the end of it. So they spent a third, of their cost for the film, they spent on advertising, which is that
adjusted for inflation?
No, I think this is the amount then. Oh, you're right.
So they spend a little less than a ninth of the budget, but still, that's
so call it a tenth. But still, when you didn't spend anything,
movie,
nobody would spend that kind of money before ever, and then they dropped that and that changed.
And a movie about a shark.
Yeah.
How does that, that's not the movie I would have expected. A movie about a shark from a director who this was his second movie. Ever at that point, and was still a unknown.
Now, what about a movie about a tornado full of sharks?
That one I'm pretty positive they might have just been like, we're throwing all the money at it, which I think sci-fi did. I think we'll call it Tornado Full of Sharks. I like that name, actually.
Someone else was like, there's got to be some other name just on the tip of my tongue. I'm not... we combine the two.
And the other thing that I like about Jaws, and this is I learned years ago after the fact, or after watching it and loving it, loving the suspense that it builds. They had so many problems with the mechanical sharks that it became more suspenseful. Let's not show, because we had a malfunction today, so we can't shoot it with that, so we can just show a little part of it. Which I feel like Hitchcock was kind of the master of suspense, but to see that in more blockbusters, that's some of my favorite style of filmmaking, is not showing the monster. I just watched Channel Zero on Sci-Fi, and when they showed the monster, or revealed that the monster was this or that, I was like, oh, okay. But building up, and when you see shadows and when you hear it, and that is so
That's what ruined the movie Signs for me. Was when they showed the monster
so awkwardly, like walking across the.
Well, because even then it was still like you still didn't get a good long glimpse of the alien monster. I'm doing a weird velociraptor.
Well, because it had its knees bent back. Right?
Everybody's abandoned the microphones and it's just wandering around the studio now.
I'm just gonna walk in front of this one.
You're the worst elf ever.
I like that commercial.
I do too.
So speaking of horror movies, number 3, the movie Psycho.
Ooh.
Which is another good one. Now, see, this is the problem. The toughest thing about this is that a lot of these movies actually did multiple things to change it. But the main big thing...
We're just talking about one.
One, exactly. For Psycho, when Psycho came out, Hitchcock actually, he purposefully made sure that the theaters did not allow people into the theater after a certain runtime of the film.
Oh.
You had to be seated at a specific time in order to see the movie. Now you think about this nowadays.
Yeah, before that, could people just walk in whenever?
Right. Like nowadays, you go, oh, we're gonna go see a movie
crazy.
at 6:30 because the movie starts at 6:30. That's when we have to go. That's when we'll be there.
Yeah.
Before that, they would turn the movie on. It would run. It would play through the credits, and then after the credits got done, it would just start. If there was trailers or news or whatever.
So you just pay to go into a room and it's playing all day or playing for a period of time.
Oh, well, it started like an hour ago. Well, okay, we'll sit down, we'll watch the ending, and then we'll, do you want to stick around and watch the beginning? Okay, we'll stick around and watch the beginning. Oh, okay, that's how that. All right, we'll go. So with Psycho, he purposely did not. Now I think he did it on. He might have done it on one or two other ones, but this was the one where he made it was part of the promotional stuff, like the posters. This is the ones where there's
come late.
Yeah, there's photos of him tapping his watch.
Oh my gosh!
And it's the whole you
That's
will not be seated.
Yeah.
I know, right? You will not be seated after a certain time because he did not want the suspense, and he didn't want the movie to be ruined if you came in halfway through and she's dead.
It's also
wait, what? She dies?
So weird to think about the different movie-going experience of just showing up and being like, well, I don't know who that guy is or what's going on here or whatever, but let's just watch this.
We'll just watch it and we'll stick around as long as you want.
It's like turning on TBS on Thanksgiving for that,
Yeah,
you just turn it on and you're like,
and you start the next show.
This movie's on, it's halfway over, but let's just watch.
We'll just sit and watch.
I don't know if this is one of those things that I remember, from maybe my parents or a friend's parents, or if I saw it on TV. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, that's a memory now of mine. But that aspect of going to a movie and hitting it late and being, oh, well, let's just stay a little bit longer to catch the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was weird, but maybe it was a movie at the time, but it seems like before Hitchcock or before Psycho. And what year was that?
Psycho was 60.
Somewhere around 60.
Yeah, it's in the early 60s.
So pre that. People are used to that experience where you go in at whatever time and you catch the next part of that. Because I have, and like I said, I can't remember if that's a memory or a movie I saw a long time ago where somebody did that. And I found that very interesting. Oh, that must have been a thing old people do, but I didn't recall it until you mentioned it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it still was open to whether the studios or the theaters wanted to enforce it. Some theaters still didn't. It took a little while for it to really catch on, but he was the first.
1960.
Yep, I saw. I'm always
You're
60,
good.
I'm usually really good at years too. But it was one of the first ones that made a big deal. It was part of the publicity. It was part of the marketing that you will not be allowed to enter after a certain showtime.
I love it.
And then people just kind of picked it up and kept going with it for years after that.
Art works in a way, when it's received, somewhat in the realm of what it's intended to be. Like a painting, right? You want to look at it with good light in front of it and have it be probably quiet and be able to just be there for a little while
and
without being disturbed. All of it, not part of it.
Yeah.
Or have it be dark so you can't see it, or have it be super noisy so you can't think.
Right.
So it totally makes sense. It's just interesting that it took how many years, 40 years, before kind of that film going experience became what we know it to be today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool.
So now going back to a television, one particular show. Now we're going back until about the early 50s. So early days of TV. TV's only really been around for officially like 10-ish years, but not anywhere in the capacity. But we're still hitting the right frame.
So we have three networks.
So we have three networks still, and it's literally just ABC and NBC and Fox. Actually, at this point, we
probably wouldn't have Fox, right?
CBS. Sorry, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Which, little known fact, ABC and NBC used to be the same channel. They were split. They were used to be red. It used to be NBC Red and NBC Blue, I believe is what it was.
Oh, wow.
They were just different districts, and they switched and just became their own networks years later. That's not what I was trying to talk about. That's a stupid side fun note.
Interesting fact.
Interesting fact. That's a bonus fact for those of you who watch 7 Things You May Not Know About.
Who are playing the
YouTube.
drinking game at home.
This is a fact that I'm sure that I heard in my mass media class. And,
this is what my head is full of.
Probably forgot.
Silly, stupid ideas like this. But during television in the 50s, the show I Love Lucy was a big deal. Okay, so at this point in time... Exactly. At this point in time, sitcoms, what was known as, I Love Lucy is very much so early sitcom. Yeah. Most sitcoms were filmed live, either in New York or out in LA, or they aired live. Oh. In a sense where you went, at 7 o'clock, if this show was on, you turned it on, and it was just a live show. The Honeymooners kind of started off live.
Like SNL live? Like we're shooting it right now and airing it right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So what they did, that's how most shows used to be.
To be clear, not to be like DVR, time shit. Like we're not talking about that. We're talking about it is filmed and broadcast at the same time.
Exactly. Like, hey, they're filming at 7 o'clock in New York. It is on at 6 o'clock here. It's on at 5 o'clock in the Pacific. It's on at 4 out. Well, I think they would still do some weird delay for out in the West Coast. But that's how sitcoms were filmed. Also, it was only ever filmed with one camera. They generally had a wide, and they just sat and they let people go. Also, not always filmed in front of a live audience. Which brings me to my point. I Love Lucy was the first show that was filmed and taped. First sitcom that was filmed and taped in front of a live audience with multiple cameras.
Oh, okay.
So the standard sitcom form, Big Bang Theory, any Two and a Half Men, any show that is a
your favorite.
But even Roseanne, Full House, anything from the the 90s, anything, King of Queens, any of these shows they're known as multicam shows,
right?
Because they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cameras. Just depends upon just the show, and they're filmed in front of a live audience. Right. Most of them are filmed in front of a live audience,
and I love it too because it's efficient, but also it gives you there's a little bit different feel in that because it is very live and multicam. Like your reaction to what I'm saying right now in these two shots is real, as opposed to let's film it again and this time smile at him.
Exactly.
And the actor's reaction is more theatrical because they actually wait. They're waiting to deliver the next line because the crowd is still going, still laughing or something. It's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So I Love Lucy was the first show that said, like, Lucy and Desi, when they were making the program, went, no, we want it in front of a live audience because they both were performers beforehand. They played in front of live people. Lucy was on the radio, was on the radio actually kind of doing an I Love Lucy for years prior to that. But so like they're used to that live reaction, that live response.
They wanted that feedback. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
They didn't want to just be on a stage performing with no audience, and then wait, and then they would like pause, and they would still, because they did canned laughter back in the 50s and the 40s still for certain programming, but they wanted that actual live audience, and the studio thought it was they thought they were crazy. Because you want people sitting in here. We're trying to film something. They're going to see the camera. They're not going to be able to see it, and they're like, no, they don't care. So the audience was a real audience, and that's what spurred. And then obviously sitcoms after that kept going and going, and that's kind of what most multicam shows are nowadays.
Yeah, very cool.
So that was the first one. So now we have one more. I have one more. That was number 2.
Number 2 of our TV shows, and then we have the third one, which is number 1.
Unfortunately,
which is the best one?
I only had 2 major TV shows for it, so it's another movie. Unfortunately, because now we're back into the late 30s.
I'll allow it.
But it's probably the most common one, which would be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was the first feature-length, quote-unquote, animated film ever, feature-length. So prior to 1939,
lots of shorts.
Everything was. I mean, Disney started on doing cartoon shorts. That's what he was doing. Steamboat Willie. Even before Mickey Mouse, he used to do a whole series of cartoon shorts about Alice in Wonderland.
Oh.
That was kind of that was actually what got his start prior to Mickey Mouse and the whole Disney aspect.
Oh, wow.
Was doing these little animated shorts of Alice in Wonderland running around. But cartoons at that point were just these little kid things. They were these little cartoons, they were little short films, a couple minutes before a movie started, or when they used to show newsreels and stuff.
Right.
No one ever asked for a full-length animated movie, and even when people found out he was doing it, they thought he was crazy. Like, why are you? No one's ever going to want to watch a long movie.
Yeah, right.
And it ended up being this huge breakout hit. First off, from a technical standpoint, because it's an 83-minute animated movie in 1939, which people are like, "How did you do that? That's not." How did you do that? They pioneered. They basically created techniques like they started doing rotoscoping for Snow White, which is more visual effects stuff that years later gets refined in a different way, which also ultimately leads to like motion capture nowadays. But this movie was just the first time anybody had seen a full-length film in the theaters, and it went on to win Academy Awards. And
well, they'd never seen anything like it before.
Right.
I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So that was kind of the first, and that ultimately, obviously, that leads to the next 75 years of Disney movies, leads to Pixar, and leads to Don Bluth films, and leads to just any animated film has Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to think about it. Mostly because if that had never happened, it might have eventually happened.
Sure,
but
it started it.
It started it. It's what went. Oh, we can do full length movies.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm sure
animated films.
I was gonna say at the time, they probably were like, or Disney was like, I'm gonna do this. It seems like a natural progression. Instead of doing all these shorts that go on newsreels or the beginning of films, or are kind of fun and we lose ourselves. Like, no, I want to maybe tell, and maybe at the time you thought, I'm going to tell a more serious story or a longer story, but still not knowing if it's going to be received,
right?
Because there's nothing like that out there. And I wonder too. I just looked up, World War II, like officially starting in like 39.
Yep.
I'm sure that the world climate was building to that point well before that. And I know that you do the podcast where you're looking at all the Disney films and like pre-war, during war, post-war content.
Yeah.
Did World War II play into that, or like was it let's create a feel-good thing in this time when we're tensions are rising?
They did. I mean, that was part of the reason why. Obviously, with Snow White, they had started it before the war had started, because it came out in 39, so they had been working on it for 3 or 4 years. But you can definitely see the next handful of films once World War II had really taken hold. Disney actually had stopped making full-length films and started making shorts again, but releasing them as full-length films because half of his artists were overseas fighting in the war, so they had a.
So was it like 3 shorts as a feature?
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 shorts, or they gathered like 4 or 5 little, like that's why Fantasia is the way it is. Because Fantasia is technically
different acts.
Yeah, it's like 7 or 8 tiny little 5-minute increments, because
I love it.
They didn't have the resources and the ability to make a full length project.
Yeah.
Plus, Walt was trying to find new different things. No one had no one had done a feature length animated film. I got that in Snow White. Let's put music into it and do a fully animated music, like a concert basically, and that's what Fantasia was.
Yeah.
So the war actually played into it, and the war had affected a lot of the Disney movies until
afterwards,
like the mid 50s, early 50s, before they could get back around to doing full length films, and that's when like Sleeping Beauty came out, and more of the traditional classics that people think of when it comes to feature length Disney.
I'm curious, like, is Disney
here?
Telephone.
I think Disney's here.
I mean, I guess I'll go get that. Except I have to go around.
I think Phil just went to the back door.
Did he?
I don't know. I thought I saw someone go past.
Stop laughing.
We need to change the numbers on our back doors.
Yeah.
Probably for Phil anyway.
Nobody ever knows like where to go because it says 126 on the door of the kitchen.
Well, and then also like it says Backflip on the window right next to the door, so I think people just assume that's our door.
We could go back there, except there's all those pallets. One other thing I wanted to say about Snow White that's fascinating, and I'm curious where we're going to go, Disney, is like how it holds up. Like, it's still an enjoyable film to watch. And technology has changed a ton, and they can do a lot more with computers and 3D animation and that. And I feel like every Disney thing that comes out now in a blockbuster format is 3D. I'm curious. Are they going to go back to hand-drawn, even if it's on a computer, but that more, because there's something so natural about it, like early Disney, like the movement is so natural. And I think, if you can see this, doing like an octopus trying to stand up.
It's so natural.
Ryan
the movement's natural.
Ryan is the king of the movement
in the podcast.
Just everything today is just.
It's very appropriate. You got to watch. You gotta watch. It makes more sense. But they would, they would film people walking.
Yep.
And then they would animate that, and even to the point where like the knees bend back. And then you see, I can't remember if Snow White had any of them, but like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, that generation all has a lot of the same animation pieces, because they reused the basic elements of it. So I'm curious. Are they going to go back to hand-drawn stuff ever? Like,
from what I've seen and what I've learned over the years, like The Princess and the Frog was their attempt at going back to the hand motion or the hand-drawn animation style, and it unfortunately did not do as successfully as they had wished it to. So they went, well, okay, we're going to go back to CG then, because hand-drawn art is a completely different world than 3D art.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can do 3D stuff. I can't do hand-drawn to save my life. So it was, and they, for Princess and the Frog, they pulled a lot of animators, and they pulled the people who did, like the directors who did Aladdin out of like, not retirement, but they got him back in, and then they got Alan Menken. They got like the people who did the new renaissance of Disney movies in the 80s and the 90s, like Little Mermaid and Aladdin. I mean, so they had a dream team working on this, but they had to pull a lot of people out of retirement to help draw it.
So it's because they were old.
And as a business, I'm sure it's not efficient. It's not cost effective. You can crank them out a lot faster the way that they do them on the computer now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that I hadn't considered, because look at like Japanese anime, hand-drawn stuff, even with computer-aided drawing, it's hand-drawn. And one of the artists at, it might have been Studio Ghibli or like one of the main studios over there, just passed away, and they have a word for it. It's like death by overwork. And it's a thing that's like okay in their culture. And
it does not sound fun.
Yeah, I mean, like to crank these out weekly, like hand-drawn stuff takes a lot, especially at the level that they do. So that's a good point. But that's why I would encourage them, if they're listening, or if I ever get a chance to talk to anyone. Like I would love to see another attempt at that. If you would just work
yourself to death to make a movie for Ryan, then
I tell you what, instead of making a movie a week, you could have a couple years. How's that? I'll negotiate. I'll be reasonable.
Great.
That's awful kind of you. That's awful kind of you. What just happened?
Were you in that video? Or I'm pretty sure that was you.
That was an important piece of media.
We're going to also rickroll the podcast, so you will have heard that audio come in.
Fantastic.
You just got rickrolled because we got Rick Astley here.
Happy Halloween, almost a month late.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
It's a traditional Thanksgiving costume.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I want my pancakes and bacon.
Pancakes and bacon for Thanksgiving?
Well,
Yeah. That's a
Heisenberg
thing.
I mean, that's a Walter White thing.
I couldn't go to it. I was like, the Cronenberg. Like, I don't know why I keep thinking Cronenberg.
the Cronenberg, the director, the weird director from the 80s and the 90s.
All right. Any other closing thoughts? I think we did it.
We did it.
And we rickrolled them.
Which any episode that ends with a rickroll is a good rickroll.
Awesome. Yeah. It's a good rickroll.